Oh, hi. Welcome to Hot Dice Nerds. We're going to look at a game called Weird West. And we've got Tom G. Tom G.
Hello, it's me. I'm Tom G.
The author of the game and close personal friend of me. And therefore...
And the Hot Dice Nerds.
And the Hot Dice Nerd. He is an official Hot Dice Nerd, having played Drinking Quest.
It's true.
One of the most hilarious Hot Dice Nerds we had, with Evie setting a new standard for how drunk you can be and still be on a stream.
Unbelievably messed up on live streaming.
So, you wrote a game.
I did. I wrote a game. So, so people might be interested to know, this was a COVID project. I wrote the first line and title of this in March of 2020, back when we had the first COVID lockdowns in the UK. And 2 years later, there's a PDF that exists. It came out the other end as a game.
It's like a...
So yeah, it's been like a...
It's a Western, right?
Yeah, so it's a very narrative-focused cinematic Western game. The idea being, it hopefully generates the outcome of the other end is, the good, the bad, the ugly meets Supernatural meets Django Unchained meets the X-Files. It's a big mashup of Western tropes and horror media smashed together.
No, spaghetti horror westerns.
Exactly, yeah. As opposed to being like a dedicated setting, it's instead just whatever you think westerns are, whatever you think is weird, it's that. Put those together.
So is that what you mean when you say like rules light, when you talk about a game being rules light?
Yeah. So it's rules light in the sense of the number of mechanics is light relative to what traditional RPGs are. I kind of hate the term, but yeah, what people might know as like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or Pathfinder or Call of Cthulhu, where there's lots of intricate cogs and gears that are moving all the time. Weird West is a Powered by the Apocalypse hack. So any RPG fans that are watching might know Powered by the Apocalypse, aka Apocalypse World, aka Apocalypse Engine, is a loose family of gaming systems that are designed to be story driven and fiction first as opposed to mechanics first.
So whose responsibility is it in the game for story? Is that like wholly on the shoulders of the...
It's everyone's. So it's designed to foster I've heard the term described quite well in my opinion as a writer's room. It's meant to feel like we're all contributing to the story equally, as opposed to just the GM putting out obstacles for the players to jump through. Okay. Which can sometimes feel like it's happening when you're playing mechanics-driven games.
Yeah, sure, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you want people to be able to write their own stories. So does that like open up a kind of gate to people being able to like say, oh well, I find a machine gun, for example? Yeah,
I mean, hopefully not. You want tonally. It's about funneling people onto the same page. So a mechanics first game would have things in it like, for example, on your turn you can attack or guard or move or defend, blah blah blah, whatever your game is, right? Mm-hmm. Powered by the Apocalypse games tend to be inverse. So you say what you want to do, whatever it is, and if there is a mechanic that fits that, we then trigger that mechanic, and that gets pulled in. So it's sort of flipped in the other direction. Hopefully the idea is, you're all on the same page anyway. You've spent some time saying, this is cowboys, we're doing a cowboy game, you're going to be robbing a train, that sort of thing. When you go into it, you're just describing what your character does without a concern for mechanics. You're just saying, your cowboy does this, your cowboy does that.
So, like, for example, in D&D, you'd be like, well, I've got a movement and an action and a bonus action. I'm allowed to split my movement, but I'm not allowed to, like, I can do my actions in any, like my action or my bonus action anywhere I can't do 2 actions, but I can do a bonus action. So like I use half my movement to run down the corridor, and my bonus action to cast a cantrip that I have, and then like I couldn't use a leveled spell if I'd used another leveled spell. Instead, you have to think that through to describe what you want to do. And what you're saying is, you say, I ran down the corridor, I throw a smoke bomb into the room, and I try and jump kick the guy. And then you go, all right, and try and find a mechanic.
Does that trigger a thing that we want to resolve it with? And if it doesn't, if it naturally defaults out to, well, do we all think that sounds right? Does the table agree that that player could do that? I want to jump onto the moon. Well, you can't. We agree that's ridiculous. You can't do that.
Right.
I want to try and shoot at that guy over there. Okay, so are you taking steady, long game for a precise target, knowing that you might get shot back? Or are you just like, you duck down and you're just firing your revolver?
Got it.
The second one, I don't want to get my head stuck out. Well, that triggers a move. You're now doing the spray and pray move. And we trigger that mechanic when it's appropriate in the fiction.
All right. That sounds really great. So, do we want to get into like, is there anything that you want to talk about your game first before we like open the rule book and start looking at like how it works?
Not particularly. I guess just so that people know we're going into it. It's a powered by the apocalypse world hack with various bits of other things thrown in for good measure that I've picked and scavenged from different game systems.
So, as a hero, you are a count.
As a hero, you are a person in an weird 1800s American Old West.
Okay, so
whatever that means to you.
You can be anyone.
Yeah, whatever that means to you in your table. It's the 1800s. You're in the saloon. Oh no, vampires.
Great. Yeah.
That's the setting and the setup.
All right. So here we go. So your artwork it immediately psychedelic.
Yeah, it's very on purpose, because I'm not good at art or drawing. So I wanted to do whatever I could to really emphasize the tone of the game. I don't have the luxury of like, here's loads of character portraits and here's loads of things. I just have what I can to make you understand. You should aim for that.
Yeah, it's the West and it's weird. It's very weird. It's weird.
It's the West and it's weird.
We got a couple of kind of vibe cards here. One assumes when operating a financial institution to have to endure certain hardships, but I must confess, I never thought it would be vampires. By M. Baker at the GM Silicon Valley Bank, pictured there with their eyes blanked out, which is good and weird and terrifying.
Exactly that. I'm just trying to force into your mind. It's the weird. It's the weird West. It's the West and it's weird.
All right.
Vibe cards. I'm stealing that. That's an excellent term for what these are. I just wanted an upfront double page spread of let's get you tonally on the same page as me, best we can.
Yeah. So I find there to be no ill, devil or otherwise, that cannot be solved with a liberal application of prayer or revolver. A Reverend Arborn.
So it's just
many generations from now. His great grandson Jason will go on to do the same thing.
A cute and wholesome tidbit is that the surnames and different things are like friends and family members. So Born is my grandmother's surname, grandmother's maiden name.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So
throwing weirdness into it.
I'll make this a little bit bigger. See this on the screen. So Weird West is a tabletop role-playing game where a group of people will play pretend and make believe to write, direct and act in an imaginary supernatural Western film together all at the same time. So if you're a theatre nerd and a numbers nerd and a monsters nerd and an American West nerd, welcome.
All 4 categories of people, you fall into one of them.
So you've described it as a pastiche of Western tropes and psychedelic supernatural.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess I wanted to mention as well, because this is a choice that is quite deliberate, and I've had some pushback on it from like feedback, but I've stuck with it. Deliberately saying that the game is meant to emulate a make-believe film, and using the terms film and television and media references throughout.
Right.
That's a deliberate choice. In that, I know that some people think, well, it's a separate medium. Don't be limited by what films are when you're doing your role-playing game. But I find it super helpful when you're GMing to be able to say to your players terms like the camera pans across, or we fade to black, or we cold open on the barrel of a revolver. Doing things like that, I think it's good to up front the first paragraph of the game.
It's difficult to set a scene,
film,
regardless of where you are. Whether you're
Exactly,
describing a bar, like an inn where your adventures meet, or an epic battle, or a murder scene that they've stumbled upon. I never thought about describing it like various scenes that you'd see from a camera's perspective in a movie. But
I didn't do it for a long time either. I don't know why it took me so long to clock onto it being a good idea. But now I do it almost exclusively, just constantly describing things. Because we all know what TV shows are. Everyone gets what a cold open is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use that.
Also, you think Django Unchained meets The X-Files, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly meets Supernatural, Wild Wild West meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So yeah, you're leaning into like TV and
very
movie.
Deliberately so, yeah.
And that, of course, leads to these kind of like TV and movie tropes that people will want to do.
Exactly.
And you'll have an idea of the expected result of a particular action. Sometimes when people describe an action you want to do, you're like, that sounds cool. I have no idea why you're trying to do this.
Exactly,
Help me out so I can figure out like how this might succeed or fail.
Just constantly reinforcing that loop of like, it's play pretend. We're all play pretend, but we all know what films are. Let's loop back into that.
Okay, so like agreed limits on like a world that has limits beyond our real world, because TV is obviously like one level up.
Yeah.
What we see in like Marvel movies, you'd never see in reality, and if we did, it'd either amaze or terrify us, or we just simply would fail to believe it's actually happened. So, but yeah, in a movie, you're just like, oh yeah, cool. They jumped off that exploding ship. So, all but one of your group will each play as a single character in this story. One might be a cold and cool bandit on the run from a demonic menace. Another, a priest seeking revenge against the heinous undead. Each of them carrying a weird burden of their own. So is that like is that core to the character that they've all got a weird burden?
Yeah, so I'm leaning into that just because it's fun. I think that idea of the vampire that hunts vampires, the werewolf that hunts werewolves.
Yeah.
That sort of, you're all weird in your own sense, and that's up to you as a player and a character. Yeah. But it is baked in. There is something strange about you.
That's important because like this is meant to be played over like 2 or 3 sessions. Is that?
Yes, very good point. Yeah, it ties back into that idea of it's think of it as like a TV miniseries. You're doing 2 or 3 play sessions, and by the end of which one of you might be dead, one of you might have become fully weird, whatever that might be, and can no longer be a player character because you're now just a monster.
Yeah, okay. Because like in a short game, like if you're playing like a long campaign or something, your character starts off and you're essentially just a very kind of like one-dimensional version of what you'll end up by the time you reach session 30, like what motivates you, what you do and don't like, and the lessons your character's learned and stuff. When you've got a short one, it's important to like load that stuff in early to your character so you know how
exactly
to treat
it's you start off as who you are going to be for this short story that we're telling.
Yeah, which is great.
There is no build-up.
Trying to find your character is fun, but it doesn't work when you're on very short burst things like this.
Sure, and it's just it's just a taste of the game. It would have been easy to do some kind of XP system or something, but I just thought, no, I like the idea of a long cowboy film. You come in as I'm already the person that I'm good. In another game, you would find yourself being 10 sessions in.
Mm-hmm. So you wrote all of this yourself. We're West was designed, written, edited, everything is by me, Tom, and you can find him on Twitter, TMCGRY. A lot of people might be watching things like this. I know a lot of people do videos about games they've written, games they're playing and stuff, and think, I want to go at that. But I don't have the money or I don't have the artistic skill. You were just saying that you don't have huge artwork skills. So it says here you made all the artwork yourself using public domain images.
Exactly, yeah. Find what you can do to make it work. I was racking my brain for a long time as to how can I put something colourful in this book that separates the walls of text. And then I remembered that I'm making a game set in the 1800s and that public domain photography exists.
There you go.
And that's what it is. The rest of it is just trial and error in free image editing software. The core of it was, oh my god, there's hundreds of thousands of photos that the public domain has, like, the copyright rather has expired. They're in the public domain.
Yeah, and then you list off all of your various things that have inspired.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, it felt right to just put a word in of like, this is a Powered by the Apocalypse world game. I've not come up with the core idea on my own.
I think it's very hard to like think that everyone like comes up with the whole game from the ground up, engine and all, like on their own. Like, you take inspiration from other things. Like every movie that gets made is a result of every movie that's been made before. Like, No one woke up, never watched a movie, got a camera, and made an incredible film.
That's it. I've got an idea for a visual medium.
So yeah, like playing a variety of games, I think is a good way for people to like get the hang of like what it is. So let's get into it. Playing the game. Nice little picture here of some horse and carts and a fast freight from San Francisco. So playing the game. The game itself is a conversation. This is what you were saying before. The game is a conversation between the GM and players.
Yeah. So I guess like just to skim over the headers, as it were, skim over the headlines. The core of the idea is we're not playing a board game. We're not playing a war game. We're not playing a card game. The game is a conversation. The medium of doing this, in the way that I like the metaphor that the game of Monopoly isn't the rule book of Monopoly. The game of Monopoly is you rolling the dice and being, oh my god, I've landed on the hotel. Oh god, like that is what the game is.
Yeah.
And the game of this is the conversation. It's you saying, I think I'm going to try and do this, and everyone going, oh my god, that's crazy, and that's what the game is. And I just really wanted, because there's a lot of argument to be had for an indie RPG that will only ever exist on the internet. I highly doubt it'll be in a paperback form.
Sure.
No one's playing this as their first RPG. They get it. They know it's a conversation. It's sort of redundant, but I really wanted to hammer home the bits of that obvious stuff that is important to me and this game.
I think it's good as well because, like, a lot of times, like, I will ask people who wants to play a game. People are like, oh, I want to play a game, but like, they're not as deep into it. So having something that covers it like this is a good way to like get a grip to things. Chutney Spears joined the chat. Hey Chutney, how you doing? Nice to see you. We've also got we've got 5 viewers. Isn't that lovely? That's a nice bit of support we've got going on here. So like I get players who join who want to play a game, but they're not as into RPGs. They're newer to them. Yeah. Like having something like this is good. And I think also a lot of people fear making the jump from being a player to being a GM.
100%. Yeah.
Thinking about how do I effectively run a game? Like how do I know all the rules? How do I know what to do?
Why does no game tell me what to do? Yeah. They all just say name every NPC, right? But what do I do? Like what's the that? Hopefully this is a one-page primer of here's what it is. Here's what the thing is that you will be doing, and then obviously there's a slightly expanded version in the GM PDF. But like this is the one-page. This is what it is. This is what the thing is that we're going to be doing tonight when we play.
Yeah, so you say, think of it as you as a bunch of friends describing a movie where cowboys fight monsters and occasionally roll dice to add some uncertainty and excitement. It's like playing pretend, describing stories to each other, and the GM and rules step in to arbitrate, mediate situations of conflict. So it says you take turns, but not formally like in a board game or turn-based video game. Instead, you take turns like you would in a conversation. Sometimes one player will speak at length, sometimes multiple players will rapid fire, sometimes you hang back to let another friend shine, let things flow naturally while making an effort not to talk over each other and for everyone to have a fun turn in speaking. Which I think, if you already have a good group of friends that you like to play games, that kind of concept, even in rule-based games, the idea that like give people space and respect, assist people who need more, like wait for people who need more time and assist people who are like maybe tripping over their like creative ideas to like lend a hand so that they can like have their big cinematic moment, whatever it might be. Whether it's seducing the barmaid or whether it's like landing the perfect stab or like there's
don't let your dreams be memes. You do the thing like... Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So you roll a d20 and stab him perfectly in the eye, and if you don't take the time to describe it properly, then that's the whole sentence. But you roll a d20 and take a perfect moment to pull him towards you, and then to throw both of you onto the ground as you hold the knife against his eye, and as one eye pops in, the other pops out, and he breathes his final breath onto your like cold sweat from the fever of battle, are exactly the same outcome, and one is slightly more interesting to listen to. So
the game is a conversation. This is the whole point. This is what we're doing is a conversation. Yeah.
So you say you're not going to find rules here, detailing exactly distances and feet, or a revolver that does 1d6 damage versus a rifle doing 1d8, which is great because if you've played D&D, websites like D&D Beyond are like the only reason that people can reasonably play that without losing their minds. So,
agreed. Yeah,
and that's essentially a computer doing all that hard work for you. So, how much weight you can carry versus your strength. Weird West carries more about cinematic drama, choices versus consequences, than it does about a realistic simulation. And the idea of realistic simulation is, of course, nonsense in a world of magic and fantasy. Anyway, so
yeah, we're already out of the gate. It's all nonsense anyway. Why are we measuring how much rope weighs? What?
Exactly. If I can make a bird appear because I happen to have some charcoal and herbs and I can cook them in a brazier, then I'm pretty sure we can ignore what gravity is.
Yeah. It always makes me laugh every time you make a new character on D&D Beyond. It asks you if you want coins to have encumbrance, and that to me is so fundamentally hilarious as to the nature of like, we're playing a play pretend make believe, like, how much do all my coins weigh?
I actually use that, but for hilarious reasons, because eventually players will be like, oh well, I take 10,000 gold. I'm like, and how much does that weigh? And then they're like slowly dragging a giant bag. Just an opportunity. You can ignore it and you'd be like, don't worry about it. But like to get that little red flag to be like, you're carrying so much money you can barely move is in itself a hilarious concept. But yeah, like the story is the fun part.
The story is the fun part.
It's not, you've broken the rules, you better put that down. So Weird West, your character doesn't just attack the enemy. They lunge with their knife, stepping forward as they do, or wildly swing their knife arm in front of them, stepping backwards as you retreat. Because those actions are different and therefore achieve different goals or suffer different consequences. So it's like you were saying about shooting, right? The way that a person describes their action is what decides what part of your game engine will arbitrate the success or failure.
If we're at a point where you and I disagree slightly on some aspect of fiction or some aspect of consequence or something like that, we always turn inwards back onto the fiction, not I need a rule. I need to look at page 268, which has the mechanics for the thing or the what. It's always we go back into, well, weren't you tired because we were in the swamp early and you're probably wet? That's a good point. Yeah, I guess like if I'm all greasy from swamp water, I can't quite. We turn inwards because with the game being a conversation, that enriches the game. That's what the game is, in my mind.
That's incredible. I like that as a concept. I'm really excited to like get into how all that works. I guess for some people, there's comfort in being able to say, I'm going to attack with my sword.
Absolutely. The upfront is that there is no way to play anything. There's no way to do RPGs wrong. If you're having fun, you're having fun.
Yeah.
It's just this is. I like the Apocalypse World Engine games. I like games that focus on the fiction as opposed to mechanics. This is a reflection of me wanting to make my own thing.
Good opportunity as well for people who like are less confident with the idea of dramatically describing their actions, etc. To be able to get a vibe for it, because here, the way that you describe things will push the story in a way, and if you're kind of like deep down. Like while we go, well, it's a collective story. We still will want to be one of the characters in the story that like saves the day, right? We all want to be the hero. We're just wired to win. That's just how people are. So people want to succeed, and I think in a game where your role play directly benefits your character's progress and their story and your success, I think like that's a good people like being rewarded, and it is a micro reward every time you role play well. It's like the very basic concept of inspiration in D&D. You do something
exactly
really cool and fun and interesting that like everyone enjoyed story-wise. Here's a magic token. Whereas this is you don't get one magic token. We're just every time you do stuff, it makes everything better.
Everything's moving forward because everybody's contributing to the vehicle that's moving forward. Yeah, totally.
That's cool. I really like. Okay, so you say play to find out the story. We rest the game of consequences. Many of the mechanics focus on what happens when a plan works, but with side effects. So generally, you're talking about mainly successes with things that go awry as a side effect.
So the way it's written and the way even the dice probability falls is you're mostly getting what you want most of the time, with some aspect of there's a little thing that needs to happen here, like the GM throwing a bit of trouble in. Just from a pure dice probability perspective, and as a way, because when that's happening, that's pushing the story forward. That is intrinsically okay. Well, you shot the guy, but now there's more guys coming around the corner. You climb the thing, but now the thing's on fire. There's always another thing happening.
Sure. So the decision to like wrap your hand in a towel to break the glass of a door to open it versus throwing a brick through it. One of them spooks a horse. They'll both have some kind of consequence because that's the fun of the game. The fun isn't in how much can we win by. The fun of the game is you're probably going to win. You're the heroes. We're playing a game so that we can have fun American West weirdness. You're probably going to get what you want, but by the end of it, everything's on fire. You're full of bullets. You're full of glass. The monsters that like you get to that end with the city smouldering behind you, and you're like, yeah, we did it. Right, all right. So before we go into game flow and core mechanics, I want to go over some of your art. I also want to say thank you very much for the follow, Nexi.
Thanks guys. This is great.
All of you. So you've got a character portraits folder, and then we've got two in here. They're labelled feminine and masculine. I'll get one up on the screen now for everyone to see. I'll just go through some of these. So this is what you were talking about with your... God, look at that. So this is what you were talking about with your public domain images.
I'm low-key extremely happy with how these came out. And I'm more than happy to talk about them in detail because I'm so happy with them.
Yeah, they're great because like you've done that kind of blacked out the eyes thing, which like it's an odd choice because you haven't blurred the whole face. You've just knocked them out, which like has the kind of old school like, is this a crime photo?
It's like a 1950s redacted photo on purpose. I've had some feedback from people. One person said, "There's no need to censor the people's faces. It's from the 1800s. They've all passed away. They're all dead." And I'm like, I'm not worried about them emailing me. That's not the concern.
Yeah, you're doing it for the vibe. Like,
it's for the vibe.
Looking at a lady here, you've got a little bit of vibe, like kind of craziness going on around it. When we flip to like the distorted one, oh my very lord,
it's just super messed up. So the idea behind so like why do these exist as a thing? Why is there loads of JPEGs I'm giving you? Because I want all RPGs to give the GM assets to throw onto Roll20 and into Discord. Like,
so this is like I'd be able to open one of these.
The core of my being.
And describe a person that you meet.
Exactly. So they're literally designed. They are there so that no matter what NPC you come up with or have or use or whatever, you can just grab an image and be like, yeah, it's them. That's that person.
What? When would I use the more distorted one? Would I like, if I'm a GM, would I just generally say, oh, I'm going to use the distorted ones all the time? Or is it?
I mean, there's partially it's so primarily it's because I accept that weird things happen to NPCs. Maybe they get possessed by a demon. Maybe that's just how you're describing they look. There's a whole bunch of scenarios. I'm hoping, a tiny bit of me hopes that because they exist, the GM will want to make the NPC get possessed by a demon and get messed up.
Yeah, makes sense. open up some of these maximum ones in here and we'll take a look at these.
A tiny bit of psychology of just like, hey, you should use the weird images because they exist.
Yeah, I get it.
So they're NPC portraits. That's the core idea. And then if people want to use them as player portraits,
yeah.
absolutely.
What's that movie where the guy, when he looks in the sunglasses, you can see how the people are aliens and stuff.
They live.
Yeah. It's got a they live vibe to it. Like,
yeah.
Like something about these people when you look into their soul or whatever. This is what you find.
Yeah. I love the idea that because they exist, the GM will be like, oh, you have a dream about that banker that you met, and he appears to you like this.
Yeah.
Why not? It's a weird image. Players love weird shit. I've given you 80 weird shits to use.
Absolutely.
That basically. And I mean, this is the other point as well. Leveraging what you've got when we're speaking about making stuff without a professional budget, as it were. They're dead easy. I spent hours and hours and hours. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't quick. I spent a long time finding the resources of 1800s public domain portrait photography that was available in high resolution. It's quite a narrow band. There's not a lot of it. But I was able to find it, and then the image editing, it's just, use any image editor you want, play with the hue and saturation, mess around with the smudge tool.
Yeah. Pops around. Oh, nice.
It's a really low barrier.
Yeah, it opens the door as well for if you play D&D, you spend a lot of time making maps. If you're playing something like this and you've got a good idea for it, maybe you're going to take this as an inspiration and take all the original images that you put up and do something different with them entirely.
Exactly. Do what you want with them. They're there for you to use for whatever you want. I just wish more games.
Tools right away are inspiration to just immediately all sorts of tools for your own creativity. That's really cool. Alright, so game flow and core mechanics. The fundamental playing of the game is a conversation with the GM and characters. They get themselves into out of various shenanigans. So, is this 4 steps that I'm about to read? GM describes the scene and the situation. That's how we kick off, is it?
Yeah, so there's so bearing in mind that this is the player facing book, I just wanted to have a bit of a thing of here's what you'll be doing. Yeah. Here is what the actual conversation will be. Mm-hmm. The GM describes it, you describe what you do. Sometimes it triggers a move. The GM tells you consequences, and we just have that loop that goes on and on.
Yeah, so you say GM describes scene and situation. Player describes their character actions and display their intent, using as much description and narrative focus as feels appropriate. GM and players may ask questions of each other to get further clarification. Makes a lot of sense. Often, the fiction that the player describes triggers a move with a capital N. So I assume that's...
Yeah. So I guess as we keep reading, I don't know. Yeah, do you want me to describe what moves are now? I guess if you don't... We
can wait till we get to it. If you think if you're about just a move is a theme that we're going to look at. So when this happens... Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Just that. Yeah. So the thing I wanted to highlight here in terms of the book is the examples. I wish more games did this. I've tried to write as many examples as a script in as what seems right up until the limit of too many. I've put in lots and lots of examples, and I hope that that's the thing that clicks it in players' heads.
Yeah. I think examples are really useful for people. They can get a better idea of what you're talking about. Kat in the chat pointing out that us both apologising and waiting for each other to speak was the most British thing.
Painfully English.
So it's just to say we don't both have cups of tea for this.
If I was wearing a hat, I would have tipped it and just
So when there's a move, there's usually some dice to be rolled and some success and or consequences get chosen. So notice you don't use the word failure, which is great because no one likes to think about failing at games. Consequences are just it makes the story more interesting. The GM describes the outcome and the additional consequences of the character's move. If the outcome involves a player making a choice, the GM takes that choice into account. So, and then you say using moves is simple. You and the GM agree what move you're doing based on the fictional situation appropriateness. Sometimes, in specific circumstances, you can deliberately trigger a move, for example, aim and fire to shoot a gun. In that case, describe how your character does that move in fiction. So you're saying it's not barred entirely to pick a move and do it.
Absolutely. But if you want to do it, you have to do it. That's the core of what this little section is that, yeah, sure, if you have a cool thing on your character sheet and you're like, yeah, I want to trigger that, how do you do it? You don't just get to say, I attack in melee. Well, with what? How are you doing it? Are you running at them? Are you creeping at them? That sort of thing.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there'll always be people who want to work off of their action sheet, their moves,
exactly,
and then say what they want to do, and other people who just want to, riff on it and then
freewheel
it and then wait for someone to tell them, well, that's X move, and they go, all right, 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I sort of want to discourage that, but I get that. I sort of want to discourage the picking from the mechanic menu, but I accept that that's what a lot of people want to do, and
especially when they start, maybe. And I think as well, it relies. So using the second one where you just describe nonsense, and then your GM says that's a this. It means you need a good GM. You need to have trust in your GM that you don't have an adversarial GM, the worst kind of GM you can possibly get. The one that's competing against the players. So it's maybe you're picking out of a moves list if you're locked in combat with your GM. But fingers crossed, you're all on the same team and you're a group of friends writing stories.
I mean, 50%. Talking about what makes an RPG fun to play, it's more important than any of these rules that you didn't argue with your spouse on the way over to the game night. There's so many things that aren't even in the rules because if your GM's a dick, it's gonna be shit. There's no.
Yeah, I mean, you can't rule. You can't rule and game book your way out of that anyway. That's how people are. That's how people are. So
the failure of the rules can be paved over if the GM ordered pizza for everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, and as long as everyone knows that you're all working in a collective story and you're all on the same team, then regardless of how well or poorly your actions go, it's fun. So, in even simpler terms, to trigger a real life thing, you have to do the in fiction thing, which is what you were saying. To be able to pick a role. So below, this is what you're talking about with examples. A player triggering a move in a game. We see the GM narrate the scene. The player gives their response, remembering ties into the fiction. GM declares that's a move and it's triggered. So I'm going to zoom in a bit here. We'll just take a little look at your example. No, we won't. If I can't use my window properly. There we go.
Computers are hard.
Computers are difficult. I don't understand them. More of a kind of farm equipment kind of thing. So in your scenario here, the GM says, all right, you walk into a saloon. There's no one here. Chairs and tables are still set out everywhere. As soon as you set foot over the threshold, however, you look to the bar and you hear a loud clattering, and then suddenly the bartender springs up from behind the bar and he's got a rifle and he's loading it. And your player says, oh, right, okay, so the bar's empty, right? Okay, so if he's loading the rifle, I want to sort of crouch, run over towards the table, keeping my head low in case he gets his rifle loaded, and then flip it over so it's on its side, acting as a sort of shield between me and the bartender, which is a perfect description of fiction without
if somebody
really
in fiction, everybody playing can picture her character running in the bar, flipping the table over. We're in the fiction.
Yeah, so it's running, exactly grabbing a table and using it as a shield. They don't that description doesn't really think about what we're about to do.
It doesn't consider how far you can move per turn. It doesn't consider the weight of the turn. Nothing like that. We agree that she could do that. It's a cowboy film.
A thing, yeah. I'm gonna do a thing. Here's my thing.
Yeah.
It's a multi-point thing, but it's essentially I attempt to coolly subdue the barman. So you say in this example, the GM's like, okay, that sounds great. So he's loading his rifle. You spot him as he tries to get loaded in time. You try and dash behind the table, deliberately keeping your head down out of trouble. Roll me a react to danger with reflexes, which I assume is a move for that.
Which is the title of one of the moves, yeah.
Sure. So when we talk about moves, there are different archetypes, right, within this game?
Yeah, so there are 4 classes, or playbooks as they're sometimes called, or archetypes. and they each have their own selection of moves, and then there is a common set of moves that everyone can trigger.
Cool.
So, in fact, do you want to maybe pull up? Have you got the image for the common moves cheat sheet? Now might be a good time to talk about
Playbook,
what moves
Fighter,
are.
Sneak, Thinker, Weirdo, and then the common moves as PDF. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, common moves PDF.
So each move is both triggered in fiction and has consequences that result in changes to the fiction. So you can see, for example, when you aim and fire, when you take aim and fire at targets with care and precision, roll plus reflexes. On a +7, you hit your target. On a 7 to 9, you also have to choose some kind of consequence. On a 6 or minus, you spend several rounds trying to land a hit, but you fire wild and you have to reload. So what that's saying is, it's not concerned with how far away the targets are, what armor they're wearing, what gun you have. All of that sort of is irrelevant to this game, to Weird West. The game is concerned with, are you shooting at someone with care and precision? Right, you're aiming and firing then. And that's sort of everything that results in going into that move and the outcome of that move is in the fiction. It's all being tied into the fiction and out of the fiction.
Got it. Okay, so the one that we described there with the character Alice, or the player Alice, saying that her character grabbed a table, ran at the barman, you said that was going to be a reactor danger in the example. So looking at that one, it says, when you act despite incoming danger or consequence and take steps to avoid that danger, which is basically exactly what was described in that scenario, reflexes. So bonus to your reflex. Is this bonuses what I'm seeing here? These pluses.
So this is you roll with reflexes or roll with smarts.
Okay, so these are your stats. Reflexes, smarts.
These are your attributes, yeah.
Got it. Okay, so roll with your reflexes if you dodge, duck, or slip past the danger. Roll with your smarts if you stole the danger away. Roll with your cunning if you outwit it. So what you've essentially built here is like a two-layered roll system, right? So the action is react to danger, but then it has like a sub-item there that is like how you react to danger. So we're not talking about just a move. We're talking about a move with a style.
With a style. So it's a sort of... The react to danger move is from a game design point of view, I wanted a mechanic that was a sort of catch-all for, okay, you're not aiming and firing or doing, any of the other common moves. It's none of them, but we agree that what you're doing is dangerous and crazy. This is that move. That there's one thing left for, right, it falls into the funnel of react to danger. Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting move with these kind of styles underneath it, because in D&D, if you duck out of the way of danger, you're gonna roll some kind of dexterity roll. If you say that I want to talk my way out of the situation, you're going to roll some kind of charisma roll. If I'm going to stand there and take it,
you could say that a react to danger roll is sort of like doing a save in D&D. That's relatively analogous to what's happening and rather why it's being triggered.
Importantly here, you don't, as a GM, decide the consequence that comes from this. You say here, on a 7 to 9, you mostly get what you want, but the GM will offer you one of a cost to your success, a hard bargain, or an unsavoury decision.
So they're deliberately really loose. So this is the point. None of the consequences are -2 health, or you drop an item, or your armor gets chipped. They're all just like, all right, a hard bargain. What's my hard bargain? Or the GM will say, okay, this definitely comes with an unsavoury decision you have to make. That sort of back and forth is both encouraged and the vehicle for the story moving forward.
Sure,
okay, you ran at the bartender.
Or your spray and pray, an unintended target is also hit, or your enemies begin to focus on you, or you miss maneuvers your enemies are making, which all of those make sense. They're all equally negative, as the GM will play them out, and it's just your story to tell when you say, well, I want to
Exactly.
inadvertently hit a friendly target.
And it's you know, this is the core of why the game is a cinematic game, because if you're spraying and praying at someone and you roll an 8, you get to say, oh, do I hit an unintended target, or do the enemies focus on me? Oh, which one's better, which one's worse? Well, neither really. The game doesn't have a HP system. There's nothing that's better or worse. It's where do you want the narrative to, this twisting, turning, constantly fluid structure. You say, okay, well, all right, I miss a maneuver that the enemy makes, and then the GM goes, oh, you don't see. We, the audience, see the enemy pull out a Gatling gun, but you completely miss it. Well, now there's a Gatling gun. You missed the thing that was happening. I missed that,
yeah. I like your overlaps here as well. So I see here, like, on React to Danger, 10 plus achieves your aims, and if you get between a 7 and a 9, one of these things happen. And in Spray and Pray, we've also got that 7 to 9 range for unintended consequences.
Yeah.
But if you still roll a 7 or more, then you're still hitting your target.
You're still doing the thing you want to do. Yeah,
so there's success with an unintended consequence, and then there's like a without achieving your aims, and then an unintended, or like you mostly get what you want.
Yeah, and so like we've not discussed it yet because we've not hit it in the rule book, but all rolls, every single roll in the game is rolling 2 6-sided dice and adding them together. And if you look at that bell curve tops out at 7, 8s, and 9s. So you're mostly rolling 7, 8s, and 9s most of the time. And so you're mostly doing the thing you want to do, but having to take some extra bullshit with it.
Right. And if I choose React to Danger, I roll my 2d6s, and I get a 6. I'm just generally
you've failed. So yeah, so we've not hit it in the rulebook yet, but you miss completely, and the GM gets to inflict whatever consequences they want on you for missing that. Yeah. And yeah, there's an example of each of the outcomes in the rulebook next for that same move.
Right.
That's so I wanted to put lots of examples in so that players get the idea.
So yeah, we're talking about fight, protect, aim and fire, improvise, spray and play, manipulate, react to danger, scrutinise, rummage, the rogue's favourite, barter and haggle, and reason as your like core items that you get there.
The core things that everyone is doing and has to roll for when
we can all
they
do it. Doesn't matter what kind of type.
We can all do it. We're all doing. This is all the Wild Westy stuff. We're all doing Wild Westy things.
Is it cool if we open up the playbooks because you've got other ones for other classes?
Absolutely, yeah. So open up one of the playbooks, and we can talk more about how they factor into everything.
All right. So we've got. Just gonna quickly look at each of these. So we got fighter, sneak, thinker, and weirder.
Yeah, so if you pull up pull up like the sneak one, for example, or whichever one you've got, they're all the same.
Hold up. Sneak.
Either or. So the idea with the playbooks is the big difference here with Apocalypse World games versus, again, quote unquote traditional RPGs is you can see that it says on the playbook, choose 2 sneak moves. So you're choosing 2 of the 4 moves. The important thing here is that you are choosing the stuff that you, the player, care about narratively. You're not choosing things that your character is good at. In D&D, all your choices about what are you good at doing. Mm-hmm. I'm putting points into athletics. I'm choosing this feat because I want to be able to do that thing. In Weird Weird West, you're choosing the things that you want to roll for. You're not necessarily good at them. You just care about. I want to tell a cowboy story about somebody that does trespassing and somebody that does reconnaissance. I want to roll about those things.
Cool. So you're talking about picking a sneak title to start off here on the left, and I love these. We're talking. I think we'll look at like this card to get a general idea of like one of these players.
Yeah.
And then we'll close off there for like this. We'll do another one where we get into more detail for people who enjoy that.
Absolutely.
I think this kind of covers it. When we're talking about sneaky, you've got titles for them, and this opening sentence, I already can think of many players that would love this. So if you choose the cutthroat, unless you are stripped and searched, you always have a dagger on you, tucked somewhere secret and safe. I know so many people that would absolutely be like, I'm the cutthroat. What about I'm not even reading them. I'm the cutthroat. You have advantage on manipulate rolls whenever you intimidate or threaten a single individual because you're the guy who's always got a knife. When you're in reach of unaware enemies with a melee weapon, you can land a decisive sneak attack. The attack hurts them bad, plus you get to reveal an exploitable combat weakness. You get to remove something they're carrying, or your attack is silent and unseen. So, like, it's a kind of it's a vibe, basically.
Yeah, so it ties into, it ties into multiple things. It ties into the game is meant to be played in 2 to 3 sessions, and therefore, by choosing a title, you're not just the sneaky person, you're the cutthroat, or you're the con artist. You are already a fully fledged person. It ties into the idea of having a couple of fun rules that I always like the idea of. The fun rules for your character is breaking the fiction in some way. You get to do a thing that's not +2 to something that everyone can do, but you get your own weird little. You've always got a dagger on you. It doesn't matter what's happening. You just pull a dagger out. You're always armed. You get your own little bit of like toy to play with. Your own verb. You get your own thing to do.
You get a bit of character as well. You get a
bit of character, yeah.
When you think about a person who always has a knife on them, you already get a vibe for what they're like as a person. So you already know somewhat how to play someone who always has a knife.
I like one of my recent play tests. Somebody played as the con artist, the next one down, and their first special rule is. As long as you've got access to your horse's saddlebags and a few moments, you are always dressed for any occasion. And they just bounced around town, going to every party and social event, gathering all the information. And it was great because it's like, I've got a little knapsack that's full of costumes because I'm the con artist. You're fully loaded into what that character is.
And then, for the con artist, so you can always be dressed for any occasion as long as you can get to your horse's saddlebags. The first lie you tell someone, as long as it's feasible, is always believed until it's proven false.
It's so powerful. You can say what you want and if they can't prove it wrong,
So when you spend several minutes having a pleasant, uninterrupted chit-chat with a target, choose one thing to learn from them. So that it's a plot device here. Knowledge of an item or target they have in the person right now that is of considerable value. A goal or objective the target has in mind, or an exploitable weakness the target has. So you kind of get it's kind of a really powerful insight ability into the world.
It's that idea of like tying back into we're playing to find out the story. We are doing this because we wanted to see what the story is in real time. Maybe you have uninterrupted chit chat with the undead general that they're trying to assassinate, and you're having pleasantries with him, and you learn an exploitable weakness. Well, maybe the GM didn't have an exploitable weakness in mind. Well, he's got one now. You chose that part of the story. No, he has. There's something I can exploit about him. Well, brilliant. That's you in a mechanic directly influencing not the outcome of a roll or getting a new item or something like that. It's the direction of the story.
Yeah, you essentially created like an extra thing that's affecting the world, like of all the nodes that interact with each other by introducing a new fact to the world. It's like putting a stone in a river, like it causes change to the flow. And then another kind of sneak that we can be is the thief. So with a few moments of uninterrupted focus and effort, you can break free from any bindings or restraints. So as long as people are just leaving you to it,
you can't be tied down.
You can't be tied down. You have advantage on any react to danger and cunning rolls related to sleight of hand or misdirection. So that obviously fits really well with a thief. And it says we're making a getaway from a scene, which is normally a time when most players aren't achieving anything. If a group is in a getaway scenario, they're very rarely achieving things, and that's why I think whenever players are put into a situation where they're like, well, there's 4 of us and there's 8 of these tower block sized acid monsters, they will die before they turn and head home. So yeah, the idea that one of your characters is like, oh yeah, I'm leaving.
It's like it's on your sheet. Like you make getaways, and you can leave your enemies dazed and confused when you leave.
Yeah, so it'd be like, I grab the party and throw them in my cart, and we head off out. Well, that leaves the enemies dazed and confused, or they don't figure out which way you went because of the distraction you set off, or you manage to drag and carry an ally with you as you go, or whatever your thing might be. So,
and again, it's that thing of like those three options, not only are not, but can't be balanced. It's not about the balance of the game. It's about you choosing the direction of the story when you're the thief. I'm the thief. I do thieving things. I make getaways. I want this to happen in the story that we're playing.
Yeah. And so when I'm talking, the world's going to be reacting to events and stories that that fit my vibe.
Yeah, you get to
makes
choose.
Sense, like in a movie and a character's scene. You know, you know when one superhero walks onto the screen to expect one thing, and you know when another person comes on to expect the vibe to be very different. So choose 2 sneak moves: Trespasser, In the Shadows, Never Saw Me Coming, and Reconnaissance. So these are
they're formatted the same as the common moves, and they are So like this is true of all Powered by the Apocalypse games. You're picking the things that you narratively care about and narratively want to happen and take place. Yeah. So, for example, Trespasser, when you want to get in a building, a structure, or a premises you're not meant to be in, roll plus reflexes or plus cunning. On a 7 to 9, you're in, but you make a lot of noise, or you lose something, or you're not quite where you thought you would be. If you don't take that move, you can still break into buildings in the fiction. But it's about I've picked Trespasser. I've ticked that box because I want to roll dice when I'm breaking into buildings. I'm doing Trespasser things.
Nice. I see all of these as well have a in the only complications section, like on a 6 or under. So whereas the normal moves didn't specify that, these ones like specifically.
So the idea is. It's not strict in the sense that I deliberately did the common moves to not have them, but it's more that these are your moves. On a 6, if you you roll 2 6-sided dice and it comes up Snake Eyes, I know exactly what's happening. Oh my god, I've broken in. I've got unwanted attention on me. This is a nightmare.
Sure. So it's already your vibe. So you already know these kind of things come with these kind of consequences because it's a thing I do all the time.
And don't get me wrong. The whole point is that the GM could add on something if they wanted. It's a writer's room. Another player could say, oh, I've got the perfect idea of what you lose during your break-in attempt. The rules foster that sort of environment. Yeah.
It's one of those situations where as long as everyone understands it's a story and it's okay for things to go poorly. And no one's trying to speed run RPGs. And if you are playing them how you want to, and good luck.
You're having your fun, and that's okay, but I'm not gonna
So here we talk about weird ruination. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, so this is I just wanted like a fun little, you can become a monster if by pushing your luck to do weird things. So every playbook, every class has its own sentence that is deliberately vague but related to what they are. So the sneak can unleash their weird to become unperceivable or remain anonymous or disappear altogether. And that's the idea. One player might be like, oh yeah, when I push my dad was a smoke monster and I can turn into smoke to vanish into crowds and stuff. Yeah, sweet. But every time you do that, you have to roll some dice and eventually you become a monster when you do too much.
Only so 1d3, which is a d6 rounded.
1d6 halved. Every time you do it, you roll it, add some marks on the track. It deliberately, there's no limit to when you can do it. There's no limit to what your version of becoming unperceivable is. It's, again,
it slowly builds on this idea that, like, if you're rolling a d3, then statistically you're going to roll a 1.5?
Yeah, it's you get like on average I think it's like half a dozen goes before you become a monster. Best case scenario you've got 10 or whatever.
D6, so I guess 1 3/4.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, we were talking about you maybe get five good goes of it before you end up a monster, right?
Yeah. And that's just it's just a fun. I like the idea of every person in this group is hunting monsters, doing supernatural things, and also themselves.
Trigger this for fun.
You get to be a monster
3 times without
guaranteed
3 times without ruination consequence.
Yeah.
Which is
and then the little sentence of this does not necessarily mean you are out of the story. I debated heavily on whether to put that on or not. I just like the idea of a player becoming a smoke monster and then the game continuing. Everyone being like, well, Bill's a fog man now.
All right. And then here, details. So we've got your name and your horse name. I love that. You name your horse while you're here. And then how would people go about filling these out? So
I've tried to make it so that quite deliberately there's no boxes where you write a number in and then have to change that number over and over again. So the idea is for each of the attributes you're circling one of those options. Your reflexes is -1, your cunning is +2, that sort of thing.
How am I getting those?
You're just picking them. So it says attributes, pick one of each. I hope with a bit of GM guidance and reading the playbook. I mean, the rules does tell you, but the idea is that each of the attributes has a value, and you get 1 at +2, 1 at +1, 1 at 0,
got it. Okay,
1.
so yeah, I can have 1 from each column.
So you're really good at one thing, you're kind of good at one thing, you're average at one thing, and you're bad at one thing.
Got it. Okay. And then luck.
So luck, again, is expanded in the rules, but every time you don't make it, every time you roll a 6 or less, you tick one of your luck boxes, and you can then spend a point of luck on the next roll to bump it up by 1.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so yeah, like if you
so it's like a sort of
things have been going poorly, you can turn your luck around.
You messed it up this time, but the next time you can go.
Rummage, that was one of the moves, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, so rummage is there's just a box there to remind you that you can only do it once per session. Rummage is you go to your horse's saddlebags and you try and find desperately in the saddlebags an item that you need that you don't have on you. And once per session you can be like, oh fuck, I really need a lantern. I don't have a lantern. Oh god, I hope I've got one in the bag. And you get to rummage through your saddlebags. And you have to roll some dice when you do it. And again, if you roll a 7, 8 or 9, you get the item, but it only works once. So it's not quite perfect, or it's not quite what you wanted it to be.
Yeah. All right.
And then you're
talking about your background and your appearance. These are essentially just plot drivers, right?
Yeah. So the plot drivers, your background in the rules, there is like a hint of choose an extra item to start with, but it's only a hint. You feel like you're
it's how
a medicine
you play.
person.
Like if I pick high society and I do something hoity-toity, the fact that I'm high society should see me generally. Like the thing should be a little more convincing.
Exactly. When we're constantly turning back in on the fiction, they are there to remind us. Oh well, you've got an extravagant appearance and you've got a background in high society. You could definitely get into the party. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that essentially is where it's about where the players talk about how they do things, and there is eventually a point where GM triggers a request to say, well, that's going to be it. And where the GM decides that is when they're doing something that they might not be able to do, basically. And that's discretion, right? So the high society guy who can always tell a lie first time walks up and says, oh, I've been looking forward to this party all year, and gets let straight in. And you're not going to make anyone roll for that. But the guy with the background of vagrant, who describes themselves as ragged, who for the last 10 minutes has been describing how much grain alcohol they've been consuming. Says that I walk up and try and get into the party, then the GM's going to be like, guess what, motherfucker? It's time for a move.
Yeah. And it's that sort of like, you say, how do you get, what exactly do you say to the guard on the door, you moonshine stinking fool?
Yeah.
And maybe they try and, convince them that they are there to work, maybe they're staff. Well, maybe that's a react to danger with cunning. Or maybe it's a manipulate. There's deliberate overlap, there's deliberate
depending on
vagueness.
how they role play it is how you
how
decide.
they role play it in what's happening in the fiction. We're constantly turning back into the fiction, and when it feels appropriate, all right, yeah, now you're manipulating them. Yeah, roll me manipulate.
Right. Okay. I won't get into trauma because I feel like we'd probably spend a little time if we talked about trauma, unless you think it can be covered quite quickly. This is about failure and pain.
Yeah, it's the HP system. There is no HP points. You just write down what's wrong with you from bottom to top, and when it fills up, you're dead.
Right. How many places have I got here? Have I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah,
7, 8?
I have now noticed an error in the formatting of the document.
Right. Okay.
I need to. There's meant to be three on the bottom.
3 on the
tier,
bottom,
and then 2 on the middle top tier.
Got it. Okay. And then we're talking about inventory. The ones in red, they're just stuff I've always got. Right?
Yeah, I like the idea of just saying to you, don't worry about picking a gun on. Like, you have a gun, you have camping gear.
Yeah. If you want,
worry
you
about
can pick
the rest of
another
it.
gun. It's your
If
option.
you want, yeah.
And then, or maybe you want a rifle so you can shoot a range, a hunting knife, or a hatchet, a rope, a first aid kit, a lantern, matches and oil, or a compass. So yeah, that's that one. So we just looked at the thief sheet, the sneak. With the cutthroat, the con artists and things. And we've got other ones that we could look at. And we won't go through those tonight.
There's 4 in total. They're all very similar.
The fighter, the thinker, and the weirdo. So I think probably we're doing that. This has been great. I really enjoyed learning about this game. So we'll definitely do another one of these. And we'll
this is
look at these other 3. We'll go more into the rest of the rules for the player's point of view. And then, depending on where we finish up, we'll either then go on and talk about how you GM this, or maybe we'll finish up with player stuff, and then we'll have another session just for GM. We'll see how it goes.
Totally.
Where can people that want to try this? You don't have to, you can buy Tom's game, and you should buy Tom's game. However,
but you don't have to.
You don't have to. Tom's game, there is or if you want to try before you buy.
Yes, you can get all the core rules. So the PDF we've just been looking at, and all of the playbooks, and 10 of the character portraits are all free. And you can get them on the itch.io link.
Cool. We'll drop that on the Hot Dice Nerds Twitch. Not Twitch. We're on Twitch now. We'll drop that on the Twitter, which is at Hot Dice Nerds. If you're ever looking for any of our socials or our YouTubes or where we are on Twitch or anything like that, we're at hotdicenerds.com. Makes life easy. But yeah, we'll drop a link to if you want to get the free version of this game and have a try. If you try it and you love it, let us know. We'd love to hear what people's thoughts on it and how it goes to you. We'll do another one of these. Soon. If you enjoyed this, let us know. We'd love to hear what people are thinking about these kind of videos where we go through new games. And if you are a game designer who's putting together their own game, drop us a message. We'd love to talk to you as well.
Absolutely.
Great to know about new games, new game designers. There are gods of game design, and then there is also extremely talented people who have almost no exposure, and you just want to talk about your game to someone who is excited to learn about it, and that would be us. So if you're making something, tell us all about it. It doesn't have to be a game. Maybe you're making maps on Incarnate, or maybe you design short little adventures that fit into existing game systems like D&D. Whatever you do, may Satan bless you for doing it. Wonderful stuff. People creating content is one of the best things about RPGs. The idea that some almighty god corporation is creating the only set of rules that people can play in a world where you must purchase monsters is
there are no barriers to play pretend. Anyone can play pretend.
Anyone can play pretend. And if you're making it, you're essentially creating fun and excitement and interesting things for other people to do. So good on you, and keep doing it. We'll do more of these streams in the future. Tom, I'm gonna get us back up so that we're the whole focus. There we go. Now people watching the channel can see just our beautiful mugs. Thank you for doing that, especially being forced to talk about your work. on camera for an hour.
No, this is good. Thank you for having me. This is fun to talk about. Yeah, just
I hope that people can take this and like it should. Hopefully, you can show it to people to be like, oh, do you want to know about my game?
Totally, yeah.
What we'd like to do as well on Hot Dice Nerds is when we've finished all of these videos is to play it. And what better way to play it than with you running it? Yeah.
We'll do some Cowboys and Monsters.
Cowboys and Monsters.
It'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Well, a shorter stream than usual because we were talking about a game rather than trying to play one with 6 people getting drunk at the same time. Thank you for everyone who's watching. Thank you for our new follower. And for people who catch up on the podcast and for people who watch us on YouTube and stuff, get in contact. We love to hear about you guys. We'll finish up there. Tom, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great.
Cheers.